60 universities have been put on notice by the Department of Education for how they've handled sexual assaults.
It is estimated that 1 in 5 women on college campuses has been sexually assaulted during their time there.
More than 40% of schools have not investigated a single sexual assault case in the past 5 years.
Boston University students on edge tonight. A sex assault happening inside a dorm.
America's campuses are dangerous places.
What a sick standard.
Boston University campus assaults.
Sexual harassment.
Sexual assault on college campuses.
Sexual assault.
Sexual abuse.
Campus sexual assault.
Sexual assault on college campuses.
Sexual assault affects 1 out of 5 women during their college years, and usually the attacker is someone the victim knows. Sexual assault doesn't discriminate. It can happen at the most prestigious universities in the country. My guest in the studio today is Viviana Maimie, a Harvard University student who is a victim of sexual assault on campus, and she's here today to share her story. Viviana, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for those of us who haven't read your article, could you tell us about your story?
Yes. So 2 years ago, my sophomore year, a friend of mine asked me to be his date to his sports team's fall formal. A couple of days later, I started having some reservations because he had shown interest in me. So it gets to be the night of the event, and we go to the final club, and we're all dressed up. Upon getting there, there's a whole table with bottles and bottles of wine, and most people had a bottle in their hand. So we went up to the table, grabbed a bottle each, and I eventually finished my bottle, and I don't remember the end of the night at the final club. So the next thing that I do remember was having a moment of awareness where I realized that he's on top of me and he's inside of me, and I have an overwhelming urge to get out of that situation. So despite my utter drunkenness, I was able to stumble out of the room, and I found my way to the common room and then the hallway, and I was still butt naked. And I must have walked a little bit down the hall and just fallen down and blacked out again. And then I woke up the next morning in an acquaintance's common room who lived in the same hallway, wearing her pajamas, confused about what had happened, and just feeling like I wanted to go home and take a shower and cleanse myself of this experience that, although it was still confusing and unclear to me, had left me feeling very dirty and small.
So you said this happened 2 years ago, but you just recently wrote about it.
Yeah.
So what made you want to write about your story?
So last semester, Harvard had a survey about the sexual climate on campus, and they published the results this semester at the start. And the results were just utterly heartbreaking and very difficult to read. So upon hearing that a third of my classmates had experienced sexual harassment in some way, and being involved in these conversations, it really made me realize that I wasn't alone, and that my peers are definitely worried, and they are concerned. People don't really have access to anyone's story, and how are students supposed to form a clear image of how assault happens in their vicinity when they don't know?
Writing this story, it's taken so much courage and bravery, but you've been quoted saying that you don't find it bravery, you find it necessary. Why is that?
I was just motivated by the fact that so many others have experienced the same thing as me, and I really consider them to be just as brave as I am, just in their daily survival. And I have had a process of healing that is certainly ongoing, but I just felt that I was at a place in my life where I could speak publicly, and any hate or negative repercussions I really thought would be outweighed by the positive that I could do.
And have you received any hate?
There are people that are just uneducated on this issue, which in and of itself is a huge issue. I've found it pretty easy to dismiss them calling me a slut or an attention whore when it's purely out of hate and not reason.
You've also received a large amount of response from men about your article. What were the responses from a lot of those men?
So the vast majority of them were saying in some way or another that my article had helped them open their eyes and had given them a new perspective on this issue, which was extremely gratifying.
So you've published this story, but you never reported the incident. Why is that?
Unfortunately, we live in a society where there are many costs for sexual assault survivors to report. For me, probably the primary one has been social anxiety. My perpetrator has a lot of friends, and he and I have many friends in common. I just still feel hesitant that there would be a large social shunning, I guess, from these people. And then another source of hesitancy has been knowing that it's a very long, drawn out, and I'm sure taxing process for survivors who proceed to report. And although I do feel like I'm at a good place mentally, I don't know if I'm there.
Well, thank you so much for coming by and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if you want to read Viviana's article, Here's How I Was Raped, check out the Harvard Crimson website. Stay tuned, because coming up next, we have Maureen Mahoney, director of Boston University's Sexual Assault Response and Prevention Center, to talk to us about what BU is doing about sexual assault on campus. Last March, a climate survey on sexual misconduct was sent out to Boston University students. However, getting the students to respond wasn't easy.
I didn't know there was a survey.
I can't remember. I don't think so.
I did. I responded to the survey. It only took like 10 or 15 minutes.
No, I didn't.
No, I did not.
I believe so, yes.
I did not.
Due to lack of participation, the survey's deadline was extended, which prompted the Dean of Students to send a series of emails urging the students to participate. Of the students who received the survey, only 25% of women responded and only 16% of men.
I didn't know it was a thing.
In the grand scheme of things, that 10 or 15 minutes could save a life, maybe.
I don't know. Email is just kind of impersonal.
I think it's a major issue that really needs to be addressed, and I couldn't see myself not participating. I really wanted to help raise awareness of something that has been neglected for far too long.
I don't think I knew about it until you just mentioned it, but I might have. If it came in an email, I probably just ignored it.
Here to speak with us about these issues at hand is the director of Boston University's Sexual Assault Response and Prevention Center, Maureen Mahoney. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course.
So 22% of the students responded to the survey. Why do you think that there was such a low response number?
I think there were several factors involved. One may have been the timing of when it was sent out, which was immediately after spring break. I also think that the topic is incredibly difficult, and that a lot of students, or people, not just students, don't really willingly want to engage in any type of discussion about sexual misconduct.
Now, 18% of the respondents said they experienced sexual assault on campus. Mm-hmm. But of those 18%, only 6% reported it to SARP. So why do you think that is?
I think for a lot of factors. People feel like they're not going to be believed. that people who already feel very vulnerable recognize that going through a legal or judicial process is time-consuming and draining, and students often who have engaged in these processes often say to me that they feel like they're being put on trial or they're being accused of having done something wrong.
And what do you think can be done to make people want to report this issue more?
Quite a bit. One is really working on changing the culture so that, like any other crime, people who are victims of sexual assault are believed. If you were to say to someone, my cell phone got stolen, most people's first response to you wouldn't be, I think you made a mistake. But I think with sexual assault, people aren't believed for a lot of reasons. One is that the vast majority of college students that are assaulted by someone that they know. So it's typically someone in their friend group, someone on their floor, someone that their friends know. And nobody really wants to believe that someone that they like, someone that they hang out with, someone that they're related to could commit a sexual assault.
And Valerie Jarrett, the senior advisor to President Obama, said that the purpose of this survey was to see what the prevalence of sexual assault on campus and the awareness of it is, so that together as a whole we can kind of understand how to end it. Judging by the reaction to the survey that we got, what do you think are the next steps in addressing these issues?
I was really impressed with the large percentage. I think it was in the high 60s, around 70% of students who said that they would welcome the opportunity to learn more about preventing sexual assault. And my office actually facilitates Step Up, Step In BU, which is a bystander intervention training program. And one of the things that we would like to see is to have it made mandatory for students to participate in it. And I think that's a huge step towards changing the culture. I also think that more awareness and training and online training around sexual misconduct and how to report, and the difference between reporting and coming to somebody like SARP or Student Health Services, who are confidential resources. I know that that's been in development for a while. I think making that mandatory.
Right. And so at BU, the number of reported forcible sex offenses jumped from 8 in 2013 to 13 in 2014. Do you think that's due to the awareness of sexual assault, or is the problem just getting bigger?
I think it's due to the awareness. I think that the problem isn't growing in terms of the percentage of students that experience sexual assault, but I think that more students are being brave enough to come forward.
Do you see the current efforts taken by Boston University, how do you see them affecting future cases of sexual assault on campus?
I would like to believe that students who've participated in Step Up, Step In BU have been able to listen to friends, been able to intervene in situations that seem risky. So I really think that the more that we talk about it, the more that people are interventions and initiatives are institutionalized in a way. Like, I'm really hoping that next year's sexual misconduct survey, students will realize, oh, this happened last year, so I'm going to do it again. And it just becomes part of what happens every year at BU, or every 2 years at BU.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. But sexual assault is not just a Boston University problem. It's a problem at universities across the nation. If you or someone you know at Boston University has experienced sexual assault, you can contact SARP at 617-353-7277, visit their office at 930 Commonwealth Ave, or email them at sarp@bu.edu. To get involved on a national level, please visit endrapeoncampus.org. And I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
And thank you guys for watching.